My name is Sienna, and I'm 36 years old, with beautiful 5-year-old twins who mean the world to me. What should have been a routine emergency gallbladder surgery turned into one of the most painful betrayals of my life. While I lay in a hospital bed, my own parents called me a burden and chose an Elton John concert over caring for their grandchildren during my emergency. The words still echo in my mind. You're such a nuisance and a burden, Sienna. Before I tell you how I cut all ties with my family, let me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit that like button if you've ever had to put your foot down with toxic family members. For the past 5 years, I've been a marketing executive at a growing tech company while raising my twins as a single mother. Jackson and Lily are the lights of my life, each with their own distinct personalities that make our little family complete. Jackson is my curious little scientist, always building things and asking questions about how the world works. Lily is my creative soul, drawing pictures for everyone she meets and making up songs while she plays. She also has mild asthma that requires daily medication and occasional nebulizer treatments when she gets sick. Our daily routine is carefully orchestrated chaos. We wake up at 5:30 so I can shower and get myself ready before waking the twins at 6. Breakfast, getting dressed, packing lunches, and checking backpacks all happen in a whirlwind before we head out the door by 7:15 to drop them at their preschool by 7:30. Then I rush to work for 8, putting in 9 or 10 hours before picking them up by 5:30. Evenings are filled with dinner, bath, stories, and bed by 8, after which I usually work another hour or two from home. My relationship with my parents has always been strained, but it deteriorated further after I became a mother. They criticized my decision to pursue a divorce from my ex-husband when the twins were barely a year old despite his serial infidelity. Marriage takes work, Sienna, my mother would say dismissively. In our day, people didn't just give up. They questioned my parenting at every turn, from my decision to put the twins in preschool to the organic food I packed in their lunches. What made their criticism particularly hurtful was their pattern of unreliability. They would promise to watch the twins, then cancel at the last minute for trivial reasons. The weather looks nice, so we decided to go golfing instead, my father would say unapologetically. Or, we're just too tired today, maybe next time. Each cancellation meant scrambling for alternative childcare or missing important work meetings. The contrast with how they treated my younger sister Amanda was stark. Amanda could do no wrong in their eyes. When she dropped out of college to find herself through a series of expensive international trips, they called her brave. When she bounced between jobs, never holding one for more than 6 months, they praised her free spirit. When I pointed out the double standard, my mother would sigh and say, "You've always been jealous of your sister Sienna. It's not attractive." Perhaps the most ironic part of our relationship was that I had been supporting my parents financially for the last 3 years. After my father took early retirement and their investments underperformed, they struggled to make their mortgage payments. I stepped in to pay half their mortgage each month, which amounted to $1,500. I also funded their annual cruise vacation and bought them new appliances when needed. Despite this financial support, there was never any gratitude, just an entitlement that my help was somehow owed to them. Amanda lost her latest job 4 months ago and moved back in with our parents. Rather than looking for new work, she spent her days going shopping with our mother or playing golf with our father. My parents never suggested she contribute financially or even help around the house. Instead, they called me weekly, asking for extra money for unexpected expenses that often coincided with Amanda's shopping sprees. There were countless occasions when my parents let me down, but a few stand out painfully in my memory. Last year, they missed the twins' fourth birthday party because a neighbor invited them to a last-minute barbecue. The twins had been talking excitedly for weeks about showing their grandparents their birthday outfits. I still remember Lily standing by the window in her party dress, asking every 5 minutes, "Is Grandma here yet?" The look on her face when I finally had to tell her they weren't coming still breaks my heart. Then there was the time I had an important presentation at work and arranged 6 weeks in advance for my parents to watch the twins overnight. They canceled 3 hours before they were supposed to arrive because there was a sale at their favorite furniture store. I ended up taking the twins to work with me, setting them up with coloring books in an empty conference room and checking on them between meetings. With each disappointment, the twins learned that their grandparents were unreliable. Jackson stopped asking when they would visit. Lily stopped making artwork for them. It pained me to see my children learning this lesson so young, but I still held on to hope that my parents would eventually step up, especially in a true emergency. The first signs of my health issue appeared during a presentation to our company's biggest client. A sharp pain shot through my abdomen, causing me to pause mid-sentence and grip the edge of the conference table. I recovered quickly, apologized for the interruption, and finished the presentation, but the pain lingered. For the next 3 days, I pushed through the discomfort, dismissing it as stress or perhaps a mild stomach bug. I took over the counter pain relievers and continued with our busy routine. The twins had their school spring concert, and I sat through it with a heating pad discreetly tucked against my side. Jackson noticed something was wrong and kept asking if I was okay, his little face scrunched with worry. "Just a tummy ache, buddy," I assured him, not wanting to cause concern. By the fourth day, the pain had intensified and shifted to my right side. I developed a low-grade fever, but still went to work unable to afford taking time off with an important client meeting approaching. That evening, while making dinner for the twins, the pain suddenly became unbearable. I remember reaching for the pasta strainer when a wave of agony doubled me over. The room started spinning and I collapsed onto the kitchen floor. What happened next still fills me with both terror and pride. Jackson, my brave 5-year-old, saw me fall and immediately went into action. He grabbed my phone from the counter, unlocked it with the fingerprint reader, and dialed 911 just as I had taught him in our safety lessons. I was drifting in and out of consciousness, but I heard his small, determined voice saying, "My mommy fell down and she's making hurt sounds. Please come help." He told them our address and stayed on the line while simultaneously comforting Lily, who was crying in fear. The paramedics arrived within minutes. As they loaded me into the ambulance, I insisted that the twins come with me, unable to bear the thought of them alone and frightened. At the hospital, the emergency room doctor quickly diagnosed severe gallbladder inflammation that had progressed to infection. "We need to perform emergency surgery," the doctor explained gravely. "Your gallbladder is on the verge of rupturing, which would be life-threatening." The news sent me into a panic, not for myself, but for my children. Who would take care of Jackson and Lily? We had moved to the city just 8 months ago for my job promotion. I had friendly relationships with coworkers, but no close friends I could call for such a significant favor. Our neighbors were mostly older couples who smiled at us in the hallway, but weren't people I could entrust with childcare. "Is there any family you can call?" the doctor asked, noticing my distress. "The surgery is urgent and recovery will require at least 2 days in the hospital, possibly longer if the infection has spread." With shaking hands, I called my parents. It was around 6 in the evening, and I knew they would be home from their various activities. My mother answered on the fourth ring. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm at the hospital. I need emergency gallbladder surgery right away. The doctors say it's serious." I explained the situation, the urgency, and my need for someone to care for the twins. There was a pause followed by muffled conversation as my mother covered the phone to speak to my father. When she returned to the line, her voice held hesitation. "Well, we do have plans this week, Sienna. Couldn't they just postpone the surgery for a few days?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "No, Mom, this is an emergency. The doctor says my gallbladder could rupture at any time, which could be fatal. I need surgery now, and I need help with the twins." More muffled conversation followed. Finally, my father took the phone. "Where are the twins now?" he asked. "They're here with me at the hospital. A social worker is staying with them while I talk to the doctors." He sighed heavily as if I had created this medical emergency to inconvenience him. "Fine," he said after a long pause. "Text us the hospital address. We'll be there in about an hour." Relief washed over me. Despite our difficulties, they were coming through in this true emergency. "Thank you," I said, tears of gratitude filling my eyes. "This means everything to me." I texted them the address and then spoke with the twins, who were sitting with a kind hospital social worker named Dana. I explained that I needed a special operation to fix my tummy, that Grandma and Grandpa were coming to take care of them, and that I would see them in a couple of days when I was all better. They were scared but brave, each giving me a tight hug before the nurses came to take me to the pre-op area. As they wheeled me away, I truly believed that despite everything, when it truly mattered, my family would be there for me. I had no idea how wrong I was. The pre-surgery medication had already made me groggy when my phone rang. I saw my mother's name on the screen and felt a wave of relief that they had arrived at the hospital. The nurse helped me answer the call and put it on speaker since I was already hooked up to an IV. "Mom, are you here? The twins are with the social worker on the 3rd floor in the family waiting area." I said my words slightly slurred from the medication. There was a pause. Then my mother's voice came through cold and detached in a way that immediately set off alarm bells even through my medication haze. Sienna, we're not coming to the hospital. For a moment, I thought I had misheard. What? But the twins. I'm going into surgery. We have tickets to see Elton John tonight with Amanda, she continued, as if explaining why she couldn't attend a casual lunch, not why she was abandoning her daughter and grandchildren during a medical emergency. These tickets cost $400 each, and it's his farewell tour. I struggled to sit up, panic cutting through the sedation. Mom, this is an emergency. I could die if I don't have this surgery now. You're always so dramatic, Sienna, she replied with a sigh. The doctors would have admitted you sooner if it was that serious. You're such a nuisance and a burden. You're always complicating our lives with your problems. The words hit me like physical blows. Nuisance. Burden. I had spent my entire adult life trying not to be those things, even to my own detriment. I had gone to work with the flu-handled household emergencies alone, and rarely asked for help specifically to avoid being seen as a burden. But what about the twins? They're 5 years old. They're scared. They need someone to care for them. My voice broke as tears started falling. Can't you just ask a neighbor? Or maybe their father could take time off work for once, my mother suggested dismissively. You know, Richard moved to Seattle last year and rarely sees them, I said, disbelief giving way to anger. And we just moved here less than a year ago. I don't have anyone else to ask. The nurse attending to me looked concerned, and a monitor started beeping faster as my heart rate increased. She gestured to ask if I wanted to end the call, but I shook my head. I needed to resolve this somehow. Then I heard my sister Amanda's voice in the background. Tell her to figure it out. We need to leave in 20 minutes to get good parking. My father came on the line next. Sienna, we've had these concert tickets for months. Your mother has been looking forward to this. Can't the hospital keep the kids overnight? They must have some kind of service for situations like this. The true cruelty of the situation was becoming clear. They had known about these concert tickets when I first called, but had initially agreed to come, perhaps thinking they could see the concert another night. But they had changed their minds, deciding that an Elton John concert was more important than their daughter's health crisis and their grandchildren's well-being. We'll make it up to the kids next weekend, my mother added, as if that solved everything. Maybe you could call that woman from your office. What's her name? The one with children. Diane. She's on a business trip in Chicago, I said numbly, the reality of my situation sinking in. My own parents were abandoning me at my most vulnerable moment. Well, there must be someone, my mother said impatiently. We really need to go now. The traffic will be terrible around the arena. I heard Amanda again in the background saying something about me always creating drama and emergencies. Then my father came back on the line. Look, Sienna, maybe you could ask one of your neighbors to check in on the kids. Just leave a key with the front desk. Kids are resilient. They'll be fine for a night. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were suggesting I leave my 5-year-old twins alone in an apartment overnight with a neighbor checking in occasionally. The nurse was now visibly concerned, making notes in my chart and signaling to another staff member. I have to go, I said finally, unable to continue the conversation. I'll figure something out since you've made your priorities clear. Now don't be like that, my mother started, but I had already motioned for the nurse to end the call. As soon as the call disconnected, I broke down in tears. The surgical team was waiting. My children were alone with a social worker who couldn't stay indefinitely, and I had no one to turn to. The nurse whose name tag read Emily took my hand. We need to get your blood pressure down before surgery, she said gently. Is there anyone else you can call? I shook my head, my mind racing through possibilities. My coworkers were all at an important client meeting out of town. My ex-husband was unreliable even when he lived in the same city, let alone now that he was across the country. I had acquaintances at the twins' school, but no one I knew well enough to entrust with overnight childcare in an emergency. The surgeon appeared, looking concerned. Ms. Harper, we need to proceed with surgery within the next hour. Your gallbladder is severely inflamed, and the infection markers in your blood are rising. We can't delay without significant risk. I nodded, wiping away tears. I understand. I just need to figure out who will care for my children. The social worker can stay with them for another hour at most, the surgeon explained. Hospital policy doesn't allow us to provide overnight childcare, though we can contact Child Protective Services for temporary emergency placement if absolutely necessary. The thought of my children being taken into temporary foster care sent a fresh wave of panic through me. There had to be another solution. I had always handled every crisis on my own, and somehow I would handle this one too, despite being betrayed by the people who should have helped the most. Nurse Emily proved to be my unexpected guardian angel in this crisis. She looked at me with determination in her eyes. Let me help you. You need to focus on getting well for those kids. She pulled her personal phone from her pocket. I know some agencies that provide emergency childcare. It'll be expensive, but it sounds like that's not your primary concern right now. I nodded gratefully. I'll pay whatever it costs. I just need someone trustworthy to care for my babies while I'm in surgery. Emily started making calls while I lay there, the pre-surgery medication making my thoughts fuzzy around the edges. My abdomen throbbed with increasing intensity, and the doctor had warned that the infection could spread if we waited too long. The first two agencies Emily called couldn't help. One required a minimum of 24 hours notice for their caregivers, and the other explained that their policy required an in-home meeting before assigning a nanny even in emergencies. As Emily dialed the third agency, I felt a sharp pain that made me gasp. The monitor showed my heart rate spiking again, and a different nurse came in to check my vital signs. Her fever is up to 102, she reported to someone in the hallway. We need to get her into surgery soon. Through waves of pain, I heard Emily speaking urgently on the phone. Yes, it's an emergency situation. Twin 5-year-old's mother going into surgery immediately. Possibly 2 to 3 days of round-the-clock care needed. She listened for a moment. Yes, I understand background checks are essential. The mother is here and can authorize everything. After what seemed like an eternity, but was probably only minutes, Emily turned to me with a smile. There's an agency called Emergency Family Care that specializes in situations exactly like this. They're sending someone named Maria who can be here in 30 minutes. She's worked with them for 8 years and has all clearances and certifications. Relief washed over me quickly, followed by another wave of pain. Can I meet her before surgery? I asked weakly. They're arranging a video call so you can talk to her and so can your children, Emily explained, squeezing my hand. The agency has a rigorous vetting process, and they work with hospitals frequently. The next 20 minutes were a blur of paperwork done mostly by Emily, as I authorized her to sign forms on my behalf. The agency required a substantial deposit, nearly 3 times the rate of regular childcare, but offered specialized service for medical emergencies, including pickup from the hospital transportation, meal preparation, and even overnight care. When Maria's face appeared on Emily's phone screen, I felt an immediate sense of calm. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a gentle voice that conveyed both warmth and competence. Ms. Harper, she greeted me. I understand you're in an emergency situation. I want to assure you that your children will be well cared for while you recover. Through tears of relief and pain, I explained Lily's asthma medication schedule and Jackson's bedtime routine. Maria took notes and asked thoughtful questions about their favorite foods, comfort items, and activities. Would it help if I spoke to your children now? She suggested. That way they can meet me before I arrive. Emily arranged for the social worker to bring the twins to the pre-op area, briefly keeping them outside the curtained area, but close enough to see me on the video call. Jackson's face was serious, his little brow furrowed with worry, while Lily clutched her stuffed bunny tightly. Hi, my loves, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. This is Ms. Maria. She's going to take care of you while the doctors fix my tummy. Maria spoke to them with just the right balance of warmth and respect, asking them about their favorite books and promising to read as many stories as they wanted. Jackson asked practical questions about where they would sleep and what they would eat, while Lily wanted to know if Maria knew how to use her nebulizer. I've helped many children with asthma, Maria assured her, and I'll follow all of your mom's instructions carefully. The twins seemed reassured, which allowed me to focus on the last preparations for surgery. I signed temporary guardianship papers authorizing Maria to make basic care decisions and to stay in my apartment with the children. The agency had sent over her background check references and certifications, all of which Emily reviewed with me. As the orderlies came to wheel me to surgery, I had one final video call with the twins, who were now waiting with the social worker for Maria to arrive. Be good for Ms. Maria, I told them. I love you both so much, and I'll see you very soon. Fix your tummy good, Mommy, Lily said, blowing me kisses. We'll be okay, Jackson added, his little face serious but brave. Don't worry about us. Their resilience brought fresh tears to my eyes. They had already been through so much with the divorce, the move, and now this. Yet they trusted me, and were facing this challenge with courage that humbled me. As the anesthesia began to take effect, my last conscious thought wasn't about the surgery or even my children, who I knew would be in good hands with Maria. Instead, it was about my parents and their betrayal. In my most vulnerable moment, when I needed them most, they had chosen a concert over their daughter and grandchildren. They had called me a burden for needing help during a life-threatening medical emergency. The realization crystallized in my mind with perfect clarity just before I slipped into unconsciousness. This changes everything. The first sensation I registered upon waking was pain, a deep throbbing ache across my abdomen where the surgeons had removed my infected gallbladder. The second was a profound sense of betrayal that hurt far worse than any physical wound. As consciousness returned fully, the memory of my parents' abandonment came flooding back, bringing with it a wave of anger and heartbreak. "You're awake," a nurse said kindly, adjusting something on my IV. "The surgery went well. Your gallbladder was severely infected, but we got it out before it could rupture. The doctor will be by soon to explain everything." "My children," I mumbled, my throat dry from the breathing tube that had been removed after surgery. "They're safe," the nurse assured me, offering ice chips. "Your caregiver has been sending updates. Would you like to see?" She showed me her phone, where several text messages from Maria provided reassurance. The twins had dinner, chicken nuggets, and broccoli, taken baths, and were settled in bed after 3 bedtime stories. Lily had used her inhaler without any problems, and Jackson had organized his backpack for the next day, even though he wouldn't be going to school. "Can I video call them?" I asked, my voice stronger after the ice chips. The nurse helped set up a call on the hospital tablet. When Maria answered, she showed me the twins having breakfast at our kitchen table. The sight of them safe and seemingly content brought tears of relief to my eyes. "Mommy," Lily exclaimed, her face lighting up when she saw me on screen. "Is your tummy all better?" "The doctors fixed it," I told her, smiling despite the pain. "I need to rest in the hospital for a couple more days, but then I'll come home." "Ms. Maria made pancakes shaped like animals," Jackson reported seriously. "And she knows how to help Lily with her breathing machine." Maria turned the camera toward herself. "They've been wonderful," she assured me. "We have plenty of activities planned for today, and everything is under control at home." After the call ended, I checked my own phone, which a different nurse had plugged in to charge beside my bed. There were 3 text messages from my mother sent during my surgery. Not one asked how I was doing or expressed concern about my condition. Instead, they were all photos from the Elton John concert with captions like, "Amazing show," and "Having the best time." The final message read, "You really should have found a way to come with us instead of having surgery today. Amanda says hi." I stared at the messages in disbelief. There was no acknowledgement of the emergency nature of my surgery, no inquiry about the twins' welfare, not even a perfunctory "hope it went well." Just concert photos as if they were texting a casual friend, not their daughter, who was undergoing emergency surgery. My sister Amanda had sent a message too. "Mom says you're having surgery or something. Try not to be so dramatic about it. Some of us are trying to enjoy the concert without your problems ruining everything as usual." I put the phone down without responding, too emotionally exhausted to engage. The surgery had removed my infected gallbladder, but it had also excised any remaining illusions I had about my family's care for me. The next morning, the doctor explained that while the surgery had gone well, my infection had been severe. "We need to keep you for at least another 48 hours to administer IV antibiotics and monitor your recovery," she explained. "The infection had begun to spread, and we want to make sure we've addressed it completely before sending you home." This news presented a new challenge. Maria had committed to caring for the twins for 2 days, but I would need help for longer, possibly including the first day or two after returning home, as I wouldn't be able to lift anything heavier than a gallon of milk for at least 2 weeks. When I explained the situation to the hospital social worker who stopped by to check on me, she helped connect me with Maria's agency to extend the service. Maria herself offered to stay overnight for the additional time needed, expressing genuine affection for the twins. "They're wonderful children," she told me during our afternoon video call. "So polite and caring. Jackson helped me find everything in the kitchen, and Lily has been drawing get well cards for you all day." An unexpected source of support emerged when my neighbor Sarah from across the hall stopped by the hospital that evening. The twins had told Maria I was in the hospital, and Maria had mentioned it to Sarah while getting the mail. "I had my gallbladder out last year," Sarah said, placing a small plant on my bedside table. "It's rough, especially with kids. I'm happy to help once you're home, bringing meals, picking up groceries, whatever you need." though we had only exchanged pleasantries in the hallway before this Sarah's kindness brought fresh tears to my eyes. A near stranger was offering more support than my own parents. Speaking of my parents, they made no contact until the following afternoon, almost 36 hours after my surgery. Their silence spoke volumes, but not as loudly as what happened next. I was dozing after a painful physical therapy session, walking the hospital hallway to prevent blood clots when a nurse woke me. "Your parents are here," she said. "They're asking to see you." I was genuinely shocked. After their behavior, I had expected them to maintain their distance until I reached out first, as had been their pattern whenever conflict arose. When they entered my room, they behaved as if nothing unusual had happened. My mother was carrying a small gift shop bouquet, and my father had a balloon that said, "Get well soon." "There you are," my mother said cheerfully. "You look better than I expected. The concert was fabulous, by the way. Elton can still really put on a show." I stared at them, struggling to comprehend how they could walk in acting so casual after what they had done. "Where are the kids?" my father asked, looking around as if expecting to find the twins hidden somewhere in my hospital room. "They're at home with Maria, the nanny I had to hire from the hospital bed when you abandoned us," I said, my voice flat. My mother's expression hardened. "Don't be so dramatic, Sienna. We didn't abandon anyone. We had prior commitments." "Prior commitments?" I repeated incredulously. "I was having emergency surgery. The doctor said I could have died if my gallbladder ruptured. Your grandchildren were alone and terrified." "Well, it all worked out, didn't it?" my father said dismissively. "You found someone to watch them, and you're fine now. No harm done." No harm done? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You called me a burden and a nuisance for having a medical emergency. You left your grandchildren without care so you could go to a concert." "We drove all the way here to see you," my mother said, her tone suggesting I should be grateful for this minimal effort. "The least you could do is be appreciative." Appreciative for what? Showing up 2 days after surgery with a $10 bouquet and acting like nothing happened. My father's face flushed with anger. "Watch your tone, young lady. After all we've done for you over the years, you could show some respect." The irony of his statement was so profound, it momentarily left me speechless. After all they had done for me, what exactly had they done except criticize my choices, favor my sister, and abandon me and their grandchildren in a crisis? "I think you should go," I said quietly. "I need to rest." "Fine," my mother snapped. "Call us when you're feeling less hostile. And Amanda wants to know if you're still sending that mortgage check on the first of the month. She has some expenses coming up." With that parting shot, they left, leaving behind the wilting flowers and a balloon that mockingly urged me to get well soon, as if my deepest wound wasn't the one they had inflicted themselves. The day after my parents' visit, I was still reeling from their callousness when my phone rang. It was my mother, and against my better judgment, I answered. "Sienna, your father and I are very upset about how you treated us yesterday," she began without preamble. "After we took the time to visit you in the hospital, you were incredibly rude." I took a deep breath, wincing at the pain in my abdomen. For years, I had swallowed my feelings to keep the peace, but something fundamental had shifted inside me during this ordeal. "Mom," I said calmly, "I nearly died. My gallbladder was severely infected and on the verge of rupturing, which could have caused sepsis. When I called you in desperate need, you chose a concert over helping me and the twins. You called me a burden and a nuisance for having a medical emergency." "You're being overdramatic as usual," she replied. "The hospital wouldn't have let you die, and we didn't know it was that serious." "I told you it was an emergency. The doctor told me it was life-threatening. You still chose Elton John." "We had expensive tickets," my mother protested. "We've been planning that night for months. And I've been paying half your mortgage for years," I replied, the words finally finding their way out after being trapped inside for so long. "I've funded your cruises, bought your appliances, and covered Amanda's emergencies time and again." There was a moment of silence before my father apparently took the phone. "Now you listen here, Sienna," he said, his voice tight with anger. "We raised you clothed. You put a roof over your head. You owe us." "I owe you," I repeated, the absurdity of his statement striking me anew. "I owe you for doing the basic legal requirements of parenthood. After all we've done for you," he continued, as if I hadn't spoken, "this is how you repay us, by attacking us for one time we couldn't drop everything to help you." In the background, I could hear Amanda's voice chiming in. "She's always been selfish. Remember how she wouldn't lend me her car last year when mine broke down." The fact that Amanda was comparing her broken down car to my life threatening medical emergency was so ludicrous it almost made me laugh despite everything. That was her new car that she needed for work. My mother responded to Amanda not bothering to cover the phone. But yes, she's always been the difficult one. As I listened to them discuss me as if I wasn't on the line, something crystallized within me. This wasn't about one incident. This was about a lifetime of emotional neglect, favoritism, and manipulation. I had been trying so hard to earn their love and approval that I hadn't noticed how toxic our relationship had become. More importantly, I suddenly saw with perfect clarity how this dynamic was affecting my children. They were learning that it was normal for people who supposedly loved you to let you down, to prioritize their convenience over your well-being. They were learning that love came with conditions and strings attached. I thought back to my own childhood, to all the times I had been disappointed by my parents' broken promises and conditional affection, the way they would compare me unfavorably to Amanda, the times they missed my school events but attended hers, how they dismissed my accomplishments but celebrated her smallest achievements. I didn't want that for Jackson and Lily. I didn't want them growing up thinking they had to earn love, or that being reliable and responsible made them somehow less worthy of attention than being dramatic and demanding. I need to go, I said, interrupting their conversation about my many failings. The nurse needs to check my incision. Wait, my father said sharply. We need to discuss the mortgage payment. It's due next week. Of course, the money. It always came back to what I could give them, never what they could do for me. I'll be making some changes to my financial commitments, I said carefully. I need to prioritize my children's needs and my recovery. What does that mean? My father's voice had taken on a note of alarm. It means I won't be paying your mortgage anymore, I said, the decision solidifying as I spoke the words. Or funding your vacations, or covering Amanda's shopping sprees. There was a shocked silence followed by an explosion of protests. My mother accused me of being vindictive. My father reminded me of my obligations to family. And Amanda shrieked in the background about how I was punishing them for one little concert. This isn't about the concert, I explained, though I knew they wouldn't understand. This is about recognizing a pattern that isn't healthy for any of us, especially my children. I need to create boundaries. Boundaries, my mother scoffed. That's therapist nonsense. Family doesn't have boundaries. Mine does now, I said firmly. I'll call you when I'm ready to talk again, but right now I need space to recover both physically and emotionally. Before they could respond, I ended the call. Then, after a moment's consideration, I blocked their numbers. The relief that washed over me was immediate and profound, like setting down a heavy burden I had carried for years without realizing how much it weighed. I took out my phone again and made several important changes. I removed my parents as emergency contacts at the twins' school, replacing them with Maria, who had agreed to stay on part-time after my recovery, and my neighbor Sarah. I emailed my lawyer to discuss potential grandparent rights issues, though I knew these were unlikely to be a concern, given my parents' demonstrated lack of interest in the twins. Most importantly, I opened the Notes app and documented everything that had happened, from their initial agreement to help to the call canceling because of the concert to their hospital visit and subsequent phone conversation. I had spent too many years doubting my own experiences because of their gaslighting. This time, I would have a record. That evening, I arranged a video therapy session with Dr. Marcia, counselor I had begun seeing after the divorce. I hadn't spoken with her in months, but she made time for what I described as an emergency session. After I recounted the events of the past few days, Dr. Marsh validated what I had already begun to recognize. What you're describing isn't just about one incident, she said gently. It's a pattern of emotional neglect and manipulation that you've been subjected to for years. Your decision to create boundaries isn't just healthy for you, it's essential for your children's well-being too. But they're my parents, I said, tears filling my eyes despite my resolve. And they're Jackson and Lily's only grandparents since Richard's parents passed away. Biology doesn't entitle anyone to a relationship with you or your children, Dr. Marsh reminded me, especially when that relationship is harmful. Your children need healthy adult relationships in their lives, but those don't have to come from biological grandparents. As hard as it was to hear, I knew she was right. What mattered wasn't the family we were born into, but the family we chose to create and nurture. For my twins, that would mean surrounding them with people who were reliable, kind, and genuinely invested in their well-being, qualities my parents had consistently failed to demonstrate. My physical recovery progressed steadily over the following weeks. The infection cleared with antibiotics, my surgical incisions began to heal, and my energy gradually returned. My emotional recovery, however, was more complex, marked by moments of both clarity and doubt about my decision to cut ties with my parents. I returned home 4 days after surgery to find my apartment spotless, the refrigerator stocked with easy-to-prepare meals, and the twins excited to have me back. Maria had done an exceptional job caring for them, maintaining their routines while adding special touches to help them cope with my absence. Ms. Maria taught us to make get well cards, Lily announced, presenting me with a stack of colorful drawings. And we learned to fold laundry to help you. Jackson had appointed himself my official helper, bringing me water and reminding me to take my medication. Ms. Maria said you can't lift heavy things, he informed me seriously. So I'll carry the laundry basket and grocery bags. As arranged, Maria stayed with us for the first 3 days after I came home, helping with the twins and household tasks while I recovered. Her agency had worked out a part-time arrangement moving forward where she would pick up the twins from school 3 days a week and stay until I got home from work. My neighbor Sarah proved to be another unexpected blessing. True to her word, she brought over homemade meals every other day and helped with grocery shopping. I know what it's like to recover from surgery with no family nearby, she explained. When my appendix ruptured last year, neighbors I barely knew stepped up to help. I'm just passing on the kindness. Meanwhile, my colleagues organized a support schedule, taking turns dropping by with supplies or taking the twins to the park on weekends to give me time to rest. My direct supervisor arranged for me to work remotely for the first 2 weeks of my return, eliminating the need for a commute while I continued healing. 2 weeks after my surgery, my parents made their first attempt to reestablish contact. After finding their numbers blocked on my phone, they showed up unannounced at my apartment on a Saturday morning. I was alone with the twins as Maria only worked weekdays, and Sarah was out of town visiting her sister. When I opened the door to their knocking, expecting it to be the grocery delivery, I found them standing there with plastered-on smiles and a toy store bag in my mother's hand. "Surprise!" my mother exclaimed with false cheerfulness. "We thought we'd visit our favorite grandchildren." The twins who had been playing in the living room looked up with uncertainty rather than excitement. They had asked about their grandparents only once, since my surgery, wondering why they hadn't helped when I was sick. I had explained simply that Grandma and Grandpa had other plans without elaborating on my feelings about their choice. "This isn't a good time," I said quietly, blocking the doorway. "I would appreciate a call before any visits." "We tried calling," my father said tersely. "You've blocked our numbers." "That should have been a clear message that I'm not ready to see you," I replied. My mother pushed forward, attempting to peer around me at the twins. "We brought presents," she said, as if gifts could erase what had happened. "And we thought we could take everyone out for ice cream." "Not today," I said firmly. "When I'm ready to discuss reestablishing contact, I'll reach out to you." "You can't keep us from our grandchildren," my father said, his voice rising. "We have rights too. Rights are earned through consistent presence and care," I responded, keeping my voice low so the twins wouldn't overhear. "Something you demonstrated you're not interested in providing when you chose a concert over their well-being during a life-threatening emergency." "We're not having this argument in the hallway," my mother hissed. "Let us in so we can discuss this like adults." "I agree that the hallway isn't the place," I said. "But I'm not ready for this conversation yet, and I've asked you to leave. Please respect that boundary." After several more minutes of back and forth during which they vacillated between guilt trips demands and feigned concern for my recovery, they finally left, but not without my mother calling over her shoulder, "We'll be back, Sienna. This isn't over." True to her word, the next day my mother called from a different number. When I realized who it was, she quickly said, "Don't hang up. This is about the mortgage payment." "I told you I won't be making those payments anymore," I replied calmly. "You can't just stop without warning," she exclaimed. "We have bills to pay. Amanda needs new tires for her car, and your father's golf membership is due for renewal." The audacity of her statement left me momentarily speechless. My financial support had apparently been so taken for granted that they were budgeting my money for luxury items like golf memberships. "I gave you warning," I reminded her, "and I've been subsidizing your lifestyle for years without any appreciation or reciprocity. That arrangement is over." "This is because of the concert, isn't it?" she said accusingly. "You're punishing us financially because we couldn't babysit one time." "This isn't punishment," I explained, trying to maintain my composure. "This is a consequence of your choices and a necessary boundary for my family's well-being." I need to prioritize saving for my children's education and our future security. The conversation devolved from there, with my mother alternating between threats and tearful pleas. My father got on the line to remind me that family helps family, conveniently ignoring that this principle hadn't applied when I was the one needing help. Amanda sent a barrage of angry texts from her phone, accusing me of being selfish and threatening to tell everyone what a terrible daughter you are. I blocked her number too, recognizing that she had as much interest in a healthy relationship as our parents did. The following day, I received a call from my parents' lawyer demanding that I continue the mortgage payments as they constituted a verbal contract. My own lawyer, whom I had consulted after cutting ties, assured me that no such obligation existed and drafted a letter in response detailing the voluntary nature of my past financial support. Over the next few months, my parents made several more attempts to reestablish contact on their terms, each time acting as if nothing significant had happened. They sent birthday gifts to the twins, which I returned unopened, left voicemails from different numbers which I deleted without listening to, and even tried to approach us at a local park. We left immediately. Amanda launched a different kind of campaign, posting thinly veiled attacks on social media about ungrateful children who abandon their parents and selfish mothers who deny grandparents access to innocent children. I blocked her accounts and asked mutual acquaintances not to relay her posts to me. 6 months after my surgery, I received a formal letter from my parents' lawyer threatening legal action for grandparents' rights. My lawyer responded with a comprehensive packet documenting their history of minimal involvement in the twins' lives, their refusal to provide care during my medical emergency, and witness statements from Maria and the hospital social worker about their abandonment of the twins in a crisis situation. We never heard from their lawyer again. As difficult as this period was, it also brought unexpected growth and healing. Free from the constant drain of my parents' emotional manipulation and financial demands, I found myself with more energy, more financial security, and more emotional bandwidth for my children and myself. The twins thrived in our new drama-free environment. Their nightmares, which had been frequent after the surgery, gradually disappeared. Lily's asthma attacks, often triggered by stress, became less frequent. Jackson, who had developed a habit of apologizing for needing help with homework or having questions, slowly began to trust that asking for what he needed was normal and acceptable. We developed new family traditions to replace the obligatory and often tense holiday visits to my parents. For Thanksgiving, we hosted a Friendsgiving with Sarah Maria and her husband and two families from the twins' school. For Christmas, we took a short trip to a mountain cabin with a family I had become close to at work, whose children were around the twins' ages. With the money I no longer spent supporting my parents and sister, I increased our savings, started college funds for the twins, and even treated myself to a photography class I had always wanted to take. I was promoted at work after successfully leading a major campaign, which allowed us to move to a larger apartment in a building with a pool and playground. Maria continued as our part-time nanny and became like family, joining us for dinner several times a week and becoming the reliable, loving adult presence the twins needed beyond me. Sarah and I developed a close friendship, often sharing coffee on weekend mornings while the twins played. One year after my surgery, I sat on our new balcony watching the sunset, reflecting on how much had changed. The twins were playing inside, their laughter floating through the open door as they built a pillow fort with Maria. I had just received an email confirming my enrollment in an executive MBA program that would further advance my career. My parents hadn't attempted contact in nearly 2 months, the longest period of silence since our estrangement. Perhaps they had finally accepted my boundaries, or perhaps they had simply moved on to other sources of financial and emotional supply. Either way, their absence from our lives had become a blessing rather than a loss. I had learned through this painful journey that family isn't defined by blood, but by love, reliability, and respect. I had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and your children is to walk away from toxic relationships, even when society tells you that family should be forgiven everything. Most importantly, I had learned that I wasn't a burden or a nuisance for having needs. I deserved support during crises, kindness during challenges, and love that didn't come with conditions or price tags. This realization wasn't just healing for me, but crucial for my children, who were learning by example what healthy relationships look like. They were seeing that their mother valued herself enough to set boundaries, that their needs mattered, and that reliable adults showed up when they said they would. As I watched the sky turn from orange to purple, I felt a deep sense of peace. The family we had created, the twins Maria Sarah, and the other caring adults in our lives, was stronger and healthier than the one I had been born into. We had built something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal, a chosen family bound by genuine care rather than obligation. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who consistently let you down? What helped you find the strength to put yourself and your children first? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if you found value in my journey, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories about finding strength in difficult situations. Remember, sometimes the most loving choice is walking away from those who don't truly value you and creating your own definition of family with people who do. Thank you for being here with me today, and I wish you all the courage to create the boundaries you deserve.